Why don't we dive right into what's happening right now? Allied sells $1.3 billion worth of data center. I don't know if has it closed yet? Or is this something that's potentially in the news, in the ether?
No, not to put too fine a point on it, but it was 1.35 billion.
Yes.
And it closed last Wednesday.
Okay.
So it is closed. It is done. We're developing a good relationship with the purchaser, which is an extremely strategic buyer of these kind of assets. They operate data centers globally.
Right.
They are originally a Japanese telecom. And I think in 1989, they acquired their first data center outside of Japan, and they have since expanded on that. They've got a portfolio in Asia. They've got a portfolio in Europe. They've got a portfolio in the United States. And now they've got the best portfolio in Canada.
Hey.
Yeah.
There we go. That's exciting. And by the way, so we had originally had the podcast scheduled for last Wednesday, and our intern Connor was messaging saying, "Oh, maybe I should have messaged him earlier, and maybe he wanted to push us off just for a week." And then he was like, "Oh no, he was closing a billion."
That's exactly right. We were closing that day, and while while the process had gone perfectly almost from the beginning. It's still nerve-wracking until it's done.
Oh, yeah.
But it got done at about 10:30, 11 in the morning, and we felt pretty good about it.
That's easy. I don't think I've ever closed something that early in the day.
Yeah. No, it was planned impeccably by both parties and by the legal counsel representing both parties. It was a really enjoyable, albeit difficult transaction, difficult in the sense, I mean, it's an enormous asset. The level of due diligence was intense.
Can we talk about, because I don't think, when most people think about Allied Properties, they think about light industrial building, best in class, unique office space all across Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, Ottawa, Calgary, right?
Right, yeah.
But I don't think they think about data centers.
No, most don't. The story there is fairly simple, and I'll relay it quickly and efficiently to the extent I can relay anything quickly and efficiently. But in 2009, in the aftermath of the global financial crisis, the owner of 151 Front Street West in Toronto, which is Canada's only internet hub, put it up for sale. RBC.
Sorry,
go ahead, no problem.
What is an internet hub?
Well, that's a great question. What it started as is a telco hotel. So it's a place where the different telecoms co-located and interconnected with one another.
Okay.
And it is telco neutral. So it's not owned or operated by a telco because no telco wants to go into another telco's facility. So in order for them to interconnect, which is vital to their systems and vital to our telecommunication system, they need to be in a telco neutral, what was originally called a telco hotel. Then they create this hub, this massive interconnection of systems. And everybody wants to connect to that hub. Internet service providers, stock exchanges, countless other, in a way, users of the web want to connect to this massive hub. So it almost becomes a massive interconnection of different participants in the internet, and it becomes a hub for the internet. There are 8 in North America. There's only 1 in Canada, and it's 151 Front.
Wow.
And so we bought it then because we saw the opportunity to make up for one disadvantage our great buildings, which you're kind enough to acknowledge, didn't have. They were really good at accommodating people, but they were not good at accommodating equipment. You know, if you needed a backup diesel generator, no dice. I mean, we happily provide it, but there was no structure strong enough to carry it. And more importantly, there was no possible way to create a fuel farm adequate to the backup diesel generator, because if it's going to be adequate, you need a 3-day supply of fuel. And that's a lot of fuel.
Okay.
So our thinking was, to the extent our users, our customers have sophisticated equipment needs, we can arrange for them to locate at 151 Front, and then we can connect them fiber optically back to our different buildings. And that's really what we did. It was kind of similar to parking for us. Parking never gets you a deal, but if all else is equal and you have better parking, you get the deal.
Right.
Having the ability to provide access to an internet hub is never going to get you a deal. But if everything else is equal and you can provide access to that and someone needs it, you win. So this was the basis. We then expanded it, to make a long story short, and really created what is the largest serving, if you will, interconnection point in Canada's telecommunications infrastructure.
Why? So there's only one in Canada. Why? It must be very difficult to create one of these things.
And you know, the interesting thing about it, it's not like people said, okay, let's build an internet hub. They evolved. This particular facility evolved because it was built by CN for the original telex facilities.
Okay.
And the reason it was built there is because the cable runs along the railroad from coast to coast. So as the fiber started coming into Canada, the fiber backbone runs along the railroad from coast to coast. So this was a perfect place to create an internet hub, and it started slowly, and it grew, and it gained almost geometric momentum as the need for interconnection in our world increased.
Is this so? Like the Renex headline is sells data center portfolio, but an internet hub is not. Is there a data center component, or maybe I just don't?
An internet hub is a very intense form of data. So there are multiple types of data centers. What we had were really the interconnection hubs, that role in data center activity. There are other more retail data centers.
Yeah.
They're out in a field. There's a whole bunch of equipment in there, but they don't need or contribute to the interconnection in the world the way ours happen to, and the way the other 7 in the United States. And most of those, to my understanding, evolved. Right. There's one in New York, 60 Hudson. It's a remarkable building, but it has evolved into an extremely critical facility. There, I think there's one Wilshire in Los Angeles. So there are 7 or so. Ours is the 8th. So most of the internet traffic that comes into Canada comes first into the United States.
Right.
Then it comes up to 151 Front. Then it's dispersed east and west.
Gotcha.
There's another important facility in Vancouver. And Vancouver's evolving today. There will be major cables coming directly into Vancouver from Asia. So an internet hub will evolve there. And the main reason we sold this asset at this point in time is we've taken it as far as we can, given meaningful local expertise. The capabilities you need to take it forward from here, and you can take it forward from here, are really global expertise. This is why we found, in many respects, the ideal buyer, an entity with global capability. They can build this facility more successfully than we can because they're operating globally. They have global relationships, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I see KDDI, as it's called. I see them building meaningfully on this base.
Right.
It was a very perfect transaction. They paid well for it, but they're going to be able to add value to this asset base that we couldn't have. And over a 14-year period, we did really well with this asset base and generated created a lot of value and generated a lot of income.
It's
It must have been fun to value an asset like that.
Yeah.
Given the fact that, as you say, there's 8 in North America, very unique, but very critical piece of infrastructure.